Hey guys, how's it going? Today I am dealing with this tree in my front yard. Oh, it's done. Actually, we hired a guy to take that out as we suspect that this was the cause of our most recently found crack in the foundation, which led to half my basement being remodeled. Again, those videos will be out at some point. Either way, we ended up being left with a truckload of firewood. That, and with half a truckload of birch firewood that we brought back from the cabin, my current firewood storage wasn't going to cut it anymore. Since I was looking to do this project on the cheap, I figured now was as good a time as any to raid my pile of reclaimed lumber from my wife's Baba's enclosed patio that had to be taken down. I pulled out 4 4x4s that were a decent length and brought them into the garage to clean them off. With the crowbar, I took out all of the extra bits and nails that were sticking out of it, without taking a chunk out of my hand this time, and since we were planning on painting everything, I used a wire brush in my drill to clean off the majority of the dirt and grime. Then my wife and brother-in-law started priming and painting the materials while I started working on the next bit. I don't remember what my logic was here, as I could have still been using the reclaimed stuff, but I went to my lumber rack to pull down some of the pressure-treated 2x6s I had in stock to start building the platform, starting with taking them to the miter saw to break them down. While I was working on that, my wife and brother-in-law were waiting on primer to dry, so I had them start breaking down some of the pallets I'd recently picked up, as we were going to use the pallet slats as decking for the platform. Not having a large enough flat surface in the garage, I took the 2x6s over to my patio and began to construct the platform. Then I had my wife prime it. Since there were now a bunch of pallet slats available and knowing the final depth of my platform, I set up a stop block on my miter saw and cut the slats to length. Then I sent them outside to be painted. Next up is the roof. I went into my stock of pressure-treated 2x12s and began to break down a couple into 2x4s, tripping the breaker several times in the process. I swear, every time I rip down a 2x12 I need to reset the breaker, like 4 times. Then I repeat the same process as the platform, break down at the miter saw, take over to the patio, build, and prep for paint. The next morning we start by getting a coat of primer on the roof and decking, and then I start clearing out the area where the shed will be going. Before we were using leftover or broken patio stones from our fire pit area to keep the wood out of the dirt, and since they weren't hurting anything, we just left them there. Though I did move some of the old retaining wall blocks to use as feet for the front legs of the shed. Since right now I have no idea where level is, I placed the legs in the corners of the platform and with some random scraps I braced them in place. Now I don't have to worry about them moving around on me and smacking me in the back of the head on their way down. Then everything needed some small adjustments to make sure everything was level and plumb, at least as level and plumb as the reclaimed material could get. It was kind of twisty. The chain link fence was fairly handy in this circumstance, as I was able to access the back of the shed to secure the platform to the legs from the back as well. Now that the legs are plumb, I pick a random height on the back legs and cut it to length with my pull saw. Then I transferred the length to the other back leg with a level and cut it to length as well. Then for the front legs, I transfer the cut distance over and add a foot or so to the height and cut the front legs to length as well. With the roof and decking still being painted, I head back over to the reclaimed lumber pile and with a circular saw, I cut a bunch of lumber to rough length. This will be the backing of the shed. Once I have enough pieces cut to rough length, I break out the drill and wire brush again and clear off the pieces. Then I take them over to the miter saw and cut them to final length to be ready for painting as well. Now that the roof is done, it's time to install the corrugated roofing panels. I install one end to the roof, and since I wanted roughly a 2-inch overhang on all sides of the roof, I use my level as a measuring guide and cut the roofing to length. I don't know what other people are using to cut this, but this was an absolute pain to cut. I ended up just going through it slowly with my pull saw. The straightness of the cut leaves a little bit to be desired, but oh well, I guess I'll just put this side on the driveway side. Then with my brother-in-law home from work, I got him to help me put the roof up onto the legs and I fastened it down. Now that the decking is dry, it's time to install the platform.
Alright, I'm doing this vlog style because I'm an idiot and I actually forgot to hit record for a decent chunk of this project. So what I did was pre-drill the 6 screw holes, screw it in, place a 1/2-inch piece of plywood between the one I had just fastened and the one that, say I just screwed in this one. So put this down, put this piece in, pre-drill and screw it in, and then move on to the next one.
The next day after work, my brother-in-law and I fastened the backing onto the back of the shed, using the same spacing as the decking. See how handy the chain link fence is here? So much easier to work through. Before loading the firewood up onto the shed, I figured I should add a brace into the middle of both of the sides to prevent the firewood from escaping. Then my wife wanted to help and hold the camera while I was cutting the last couple pieces of decking to fit.
Dog poo.
Thanks. cut the decking to fit in between the two 4x4 legs. Then once I had the center beam marked out, I taped them together and took them to the bandsaw to notch out for the center beam. Then I fastened them onto the shed. And now there isn't anything else to do on here but to load up our giant pile of firewood, and the project is done. Not counting the basement, this is probably one of our bigger projects of the year, and it's something we'll all enjoy since we all had a part in building it. It's definitely transformed that piece of the yard into something more pleasant to look at, especially since before it was a ratty pile of tarp. My wife and I usually have a couple fires a month during the summer months, so we know that this will be something that gets a lot of use, even though it'll be winter by the time this video comes out. And with that, I'm going to call it a video. So, thank you guys for watching, we will see you in the next video, and have a good one.